Mason. I'm really excited about today's topic. We're diving into a subject that's both close to my heart and incredibly inspiring unsung heroes. You know, those people who make a huge difference in our lives, but rarely get the recognition they deserve. How do you feel about that?
Oh, Sophia, I couldn't agree more. Unsung heroes are everywhere, doing extraordinary things in the most humble ways. They're the people who work behind the scenes, often without any fanfare, but their contributions are invaluable. Today, we're going to shine a light on these amazing individuals.
Exactly. And I think it's important to start by asking, what exactly makes someone an unsung hero? I mean, what kind of characteristics or actions do they have that truly define them as unsung heroes?
Well, Sophia, an unsung hero is often someone who shows incredible dedication, kindness, and resilience. They're not in it for the applause or the recognition. They do what they do because they care deeply. These are people who, for example, might work long hours to keep our communities safe. Or maybe they're the ones who support others during tough times, often without anyone even noticing.
Yes, like the teacher who stays late to help struggling students, or the nurse who goes the extra mile for her patients. These are everyday heroes who don't wear capes, but their actions are heroic nonetheless. And speaking of that, Mason, do you have any personal experiences or stories of unsung heroes that you'd like to share?
I do, actually. There's one story that always comes to mind. It's about a janitor at my old school. Mr. Thompson was his name. He wasn't just a janitor, he was someone who genuinely cared about the students. He'd always greet us with a smile, but more than that, he would stay after school to talk to kids who needed a little extra encouragement. He didn't just clean the hallways. He was someone who made sure everyone felt valued and seen. And yet, he never sought any recognition. To me, that's the essence of an unsung hero.
Wow, Mason, that's such a beautiful story. Mr. Thompson sounds like he had a real impact on those around him, even if his role wasn't flashy or glamorous. It's these small, consistent acts of kindness that really make a difference in people's lives. It reminds me of a quote I once heard, "Not all heroes wear capes." It's so true, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that these unsung heroes often don't even realize the impact they're making. They just do what they believe is right, without any expectation of reward or recognition. It's a kind of quiet strength that's really powerful.
You know, Mason, as we talk about unsung heroes, I think it's important to highlight how these heroes exist in all aspects of life, whether it's at home, in the workplace, or in the community. They're the people who support us in ways we might not even realize until we stop and reflect. And speaking of reflection, let's take a moment to think about the vocabulary we've been using.
That's a great idea, Sophia. Let's break down some key phrases and words that we've mentioned so far. First, we talked about unsung heroes. This phrase refers to people who do amazing things, but don't receive the recognition they deserve. The word unsung means not celebrated or praised, even though someone deserves it.
Exactly, Mason. And we also use the phrase "goes the extra mile." This means doing more than what's expected or required, often to help someone else. It's a great way to describe the actions of an unsung hero.
Another important phrase we mentioned is quiet strength. This refers to someone who is strong and impactful without being loud or boastful. It's a subtle but powerful kind of strength that many unsung heroes possess.
Yes, and these are all phrases that really capture the essence of what it means to be an unsung hero. As we continue with our conversation, we'll keep revisiting these terms, repeating them, and explaining them in different contexts to make sure they're clear and easy to understand.
Where'd they go?
So, Sophia,
Where'd they go?
we've talked a lot about what makes someone an unsung hero and shared some personal stories. But let's dive a little deeper into the characteristics of these heroes. What are some qualities you think are essential for someone to be considered an unsung hero?
That's a great question, Mason. I think one of the most important qualities is empathy. Unsung heroes often have a deep understanding of what others are going through, and they're motivated by a desire to help, not for their own gain, but because they genuinely care about others' well-being.
Empathy is huge. It's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand their feelings and experiences. Another key quality is humility. Unsung heroes aren't looking for the spotlight. They do what they do because it's the right thing, not because they want to be praised.
And let's not forget dedication. These individuals are often incredibly dedicated to their cause, their community, or the people they're helping. They're persistent and committed, even when the going gets tough.
That's right, Sophia. Dedication is what drives them to keep going, even when there are no rewards or recognition in sight. And I think another important quality is selflessness. Unsung heroes often put others' needs before their own, sometimes at great personal sacrifice.
Selflessness, it's such a powerful trait. And it's what makes these individuals so special. They're the ones who quietly shape our lives, our communities, and our world without ever asking for anything in return. Now, let's take a closer look at how we can recognize these heroes in our everyday lives. Mason, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you realized someone around you was an unsung hero?
You know, Sophia, I think it's something that happens more often than we realize. It's easy to overlook the small, consistent acts of kindness that people do every day because they're not always in the spotlight. For example, there's a lady in my neighborhood, Mrs. Patel. She's an elderly woman who's been living there for years. At first glance, you wouldn't think she's doing anything extraordinary, but every morning, she goes out of her way to check on her neighbors, especially the elderly ones. She brings them groceries, helps with their chores, and even sits with them for a chat. She does all of this quietly, without expecting anything in return.
That's such a beautiful example. Mason, Mrs. Patel is definitely an unsung hero. She's making a difference in her community in ways that many people might not even notice. It's those small, consistent actions like checking on her neighbors that really embody what it means to be an unsung hero. It's not about grand gestures, it's about the little things that add up over time.
Absolutely, Sophia. And what's remarkable is that these heroes often don't even realize the impact they're making. They just see it as doing what's right or what's needed. I think it's important for us to be more aware of these individuals and to appreciate them for what they do. But how do you think we can better recognize and acknowledge these unsung heroes in our lives?
That's a good question, Mason. I think one of the first steps is simply being more observant. Often, we're so caught up in our own lives that we miss what's happening around us. Taking a moment to look around and notice who's quietly making a difference can be eye-opening. It's also important to express gratitude. Even a simple thank you can go a long way in letting someone know that their efforts are appreciated.
I couldn't agree more. Expressing gratitude is something we should all do more often. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture sometimes. Just acknowledging someone's hard work or kindness can make a huge difference in their day. Another thing we can do is share their stories. By telling others about these unsung heroes, we can spread their influence and maybe even inspire others to act in similar ways.
That's a great point. Mason, sharing their stories helps bring attention to the positive impact they're having, even if they're not seeking recognition. And speaking of stories, do you have another example of an unsung hero from your life that you'd like to share?
I do, actually. There's this guy I used to work with, Tom. He was one of the maintenance staff at our office. Most people didn't pay much attention to him, but Tom had this incredible work ethic. He would come in early, stay late, and always made sure everything was running smoothly. But what really stood out to me was how he always took the time to help others. If someone was having a bad day, Tom was the first one to notice and offer a kind word or a helping hand. He didn't do it for recognition, he did it because he genuinely cared about people.
That's really touching, Mason. Tom sounds like someone who truly embodied the spirit of an unsung hero. His kindness and dedication made a difference, even if it wasn't always noticed by everyone. And I think that's something we can all learn from, to be more aware of the people around us and to recognize the quiet ways in which they make our lives better.
Exactly, Sophia. And I think this brings us to an important point: recognizing the importance of these small, everyday actions. It's easy to overlook them, but they're the building blocks of a strong, supportive community. And that's something we should all strive to create.
Yes, Mason. And I think it's also about shifting our mindset. Instead of just focusing on the big, obvious heroes, we should start appreciating the smaller, quieter acts of heroism that happen around us every day. Whether it's someone like Mrs. Patel or Tom, these are the people who keep our communities running smoothly and make our lives a little brighter, even if we don't always notice.
Let's take a moment to reflect on the vocabulary we've been using. I think it's important to revisit these terms to make sure they're clear and understood by everyone.
Great idea, Mason. So let's start with unsung hero. As we mentioned earlier, this phrase refers to someone who does great things but doesn't get the recognition they deserve. The word unsung means not celebrated or acknowledged, even though they should be.
Another important phrase we've used is quiet strength. This refers to someone who is strong and impactful without being loud or boastful. It's a subtle but powerful kind of strength that many unsung heroes possess.
We also talked about expressing gratitude. This means showing appreciation for someone's efforts or kindness. It can be as simple as saying thank you or as significant as sharing their story with others.
And let's not forget making a difference. This phrase means having a positive impact on someone's life or on a situation. It's what unsung heroes do every day, even if their actions aren't widely recognized.
These are all important concepts that help us understand what it means to be an unsung hero and how we can better recognize and appreciate these individuals in our lives. Now, let's dive even deeper into the impact that these heroes have on us and our communities. Mason, how do you think unsung heroes influence our lives, even when we don't always see it?
That's a great question, Sophia. I think unsung heroes have a profound impact on our lives, often in ways we don't immediately realize. They're the ones who keep things running smoothly behind the scenes. Whether it's at work, in our neighborhoods, or even in our families, their actions create a sense of stability and support that we sometimes take for granted. For example, think about the janitors who clean our schools and offices. We might not notice them every day, but without their hard work, our environments wouldn't be nearly as pleasant or functional.
Absolutely, Mason. And it's not just about maintaining physical spaces, it's also about the emotional and social support they provide. Unsung heroes often have a way of lifting others up without making a big deal out of it. For instance, there's always that one person in a group who listens more than they speak, who offers a kind word or a bit of advice when someone needs it. They might not be in the spotlight, but they're the glue that holds the group together.
Exactly, Sophia. It's those small acts of kindness and support that often have the biggest impact. They might not be dramatic or flashy, but they're essential to creating a positive environment. And the thing is, these actions are often contagious. When we see someone acting selflessly or helping others without expecting anything in return, it inspires us to do the same.
That's so true, Mason. It's like a ripple effect. One person's kindness can spread throughout a whole community. And that's why it's so important to recognize and appreciate these unsung heroes. Their impact goes beyond what we can see on the surface. It touches lives in ways we might never fully understand.
Speaking of impact, let's take a moment to discuss some of the key phrases we've been using in this conversation. It's important to make sure we all understand these terms and how they relate to the topic of unsung heroes.
Definitely. Let's start with the phrase ripple effect. This means that one action, often a small one, can cause a series of other actions or reactions. It's like when you drop a pebble into a pond and the ripples spread out from where it landed. In the context of our conversation, it means that one person's kindness can inspire others to be kind as well, creating a positive chain reaction.
Another important phrase is emotional support. This refers to the help and comfort we give to others, especially during difficult times. Emotional support can come in many forms: listening to someone, offering advice, or just being there for them when they need it.
We also talked about contagious actions. This means that certain behaviors, like kindness or generosity, can spread from one person to another. When we see someone doing something good, it often encourages us to do the same. This is how unsung heroes can have such a wide-reaching impact.
And let's not forget creating a positive environment. This phrase means fostering a space where people feel supported, appreciated, and encouraged. Unsung heroes often do this quietly, by being kind, helpful, and thoughtful in their everyday actions.
These concepts are central to understanding the true impact of unsung heroes. Their actions, though often unnoticed, create a foundation of support and positivity that benefits everyone around them.
You know, Sophia, when we talk about the impact of unsung heroes, I can't help but think about my grandmother. She was never someone who sought attention, but she was always there for everyone in the family. She was the one who remembered birthdays, who cooked meals when someone was sick, who listened without judgment when you needed to talk. She wasn't famous or wealthy, but her presence was felt deeply by everyone who knew her.
That's such a beautiful example. Mason, your grandmother sounds like someone who truly embodied the essence of an unsung hero. She made a lasting impact on your life and the lives of others in her quiet, caring way. It reminds me of the importance of acknowledging these individuals while they're still with us. Too often, we realize their significance only after they're gone.
That's a really important point, Sophia. We should make an effort to recognize and appreciate the unsung heroes in our lives while we can. It doesn't have to be anything grand. A simple thank you or a kind word can mean so much. It's about letting them know that their efforts are seen and valued.
Exactly, Mason. And for our listeners, I want to challenge you to think about the unsung heroes in your own life. Who are the people quietly making a difference for you? Maybe it's a family member, a friend, or even someone at work. Take a moment to acknowledge them, to let them know that what they do matters.
I think that's a great challenge, Sophia, and it's something we can all do. No matter how busy we are, recognizing the unsung heroes around us not only honors them, but also strengthens our connections with each other. It reminds us of the importance of kindness, humility, and service.
Focus on something crucial: how we can honor these heroes in our lives and, more importantly, how we can embrace their spirit in our actions. Mason, what does it mean to you to honor an unsung hero?
That's a great question, Sophia. Honoring an unsung hero, to me, means recognizing their contributions and expressing our gratitude. It's about acknowledging the difference they make in our lives, even if they don't seek recognition. Sometimes, honoring them is as simple as telling them, "Thank you for everything you do." Other times, it's about carrying forward the values they embody: kindness, humility, and service to others.
Absolutely, Mason. And I think embracing their spirit is about more than just recognition. It's about letting their example inspire us to act in similar ways. We can all be unsung heroes in our own small ways, by helping others without expecting anything in return, by showing compassion, and by making a positive difference in our communities.
Exactly, Sophia. It's about making the effort to go beyond our own needs and think about how we can contribute to the well-being of others. Whether it's at work, in our neighborhoods, or within our families, there's always an opportunity to be an unsung hero. And the best part is, you don't need to do anything grand. Small acts of kindness and support can have a huge impact.
That's so true, Mason. Sometimes it's the simplest gestures that mean the most. A smile, a kind word, or a helping hand can brighten someone's day and make them feel valued. And when we do these things consistently, we create a culture of kindness that spreads beyond just our immediate circle.
I love that idea, Sophia. A culture of kindness. It's something we can all contribute to, and it starts with being mindful of how we treat others. One thing I've learned is that kindness is contagious. When you see someone being kind, it inspires you to do the same. It creates a ripple effect that can reach far beyond what we initially imagined.
Definitely, Mason. And that brings us back to something we've talked about throughout this podcast, the ripple effect. This idea that one small action can lead to a series of positive reactions is so powerful. When we act with kindness and selflessness, we might not see the full impact of our actions, but we can trust that they're making a difference.
And speaking of making a difference, let's take a moment to highlight some of the key phrases we've been discussing in this conversation. It's important for our listeners to really understand these concepts, as they're central to the idea of being an unsung hero.
Absolutely. Let's start with the phrase honoring an unsung hero. This means acknowledging and appreciating the contributions of someone who works behind the scenes, often without recognition. It's about showing gratitude for their efforts, even if they don't ask for it.
Then there's the phrase, embracing the spirit. This refers to adopting the values and behaviors that unsung heroes embody. It's about letting their example inspire us to act with kindness, humility, and a focus on helping others.
We also talked about creating a culture of kindness. This phrase means fostering an environment where kindness and compassion are the norm. It's about encouraging positive behavior and supporting one another in our daily lives.
And of course, the ripple effect. As we've mentioned before, this concept means that one small action can cause a series of positive changes. It's like dropping a pebble into water and watching the ripples spread outwards. In the context of our conversation, it's about how one act of kindness can inspire others to be kind, creating a chain reaction of positivity.
These phrases are not just words, they're concepts that can guide us in how we live our lives. By understanding and applying them, we can all contribute to a more compassionate and supportive world.
You know, Sophia, when I think about embracing the spirit of unsung heroes, I can't help but remember a colleague I used to work with. She was always the first to volunteer for tasks that no one else wanted to do. She never complained, never sought credit. She just did what needed to be done because she cared about the team. I learned so much from her about the importance of humility and service.
That's a beautiful example, Mason. It sounds like she truly embodied the spirit of an unsung hero. People like her show us that making a difference doesn't always require recognition or praise. It's about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And it's those actions, however small they may seem, that have a lasting impact on those around us.
Exactly, Sophia. And I think it's important for all of us to reflect on how we can embody those qualities in our own lives. We might not all have the opportunity to do something big or noticeable, but we all have the ability to make a positive impact in our own ways.
That's so true, Mason. And for our listeners, I want to challenge you once again. Think about how you can be an unsung hero in your own life. What small actions can you take today to make someone else's life a little bit better? It might be something as simple as offering to help a colleague, listening to a friend who needs to talk, or even just being patient and kind in a difficult situation.
I love that challenge, Sophia, and I think it's something we can all do, regardless of our circumstances. Being an unsung hero isn't about being perfect, it's about being willing to make a difference, even in small ways.
As we wrap up this podcast, I want to leave you all with a final thought. The spirit of an unsung hero is something we can all embrace. It's about living with kindness, humility, and a focus on others. And when we do that, we not only honor the unsung heroes around us, but we also become part of a greater movement towards a more compassionate and connected world.
Well said, Sophia. And with that, we hope you found this conversation meaningful and inspiring. Remember, being an unsung hero doesn't require grand gestures, just a willingness to act with kindness and integrity. even when no one is watching.